Aérogramme is presented by Pinarello, and episode 1 is powered by the Pinarello F12. From Peloton magazine, this is Aérogramme. For those of you who don't know James Start, he's Peloton's European associate based in Paris. He's covered 30 tours, and his photography is respected and honored around the globe. He's also a good friend, and we're lucky to have him as part of the Peloton editorial team. We begin episode 1 with his explanation for the name of our new podcast.
Prepaid, thin, blue pieces of paper that you would fold into an envelope with a prepaid stamp called the Aérogramme. And they were recognized all around the world. The first one, I believe, was in 1969, and it had one of the original Concorde airplanes as its stamp. And the stamp was just sort of like, it was part of the paper. You know, it wasn't like a stamp stuck onto it or anything. And you would fold it up and lick the edges, and it becomes then an envelope, little thin blue envelope. And you could write as much as you could get onto that one piece of paper.
Tom Boonen is not your regular athlete or cyclist in Belgium. He's so huge and so respected and so loved. It's almost as if he's a religion.
Ze worden nu een beetje overrompeld. Valverde zit daar ook nog altijd. Boonen zit aan het wiel van Valverde. Ik zie geen Petacchi. Tom Boonen moet zich nu losmaken, mag zich niet laten insluiten. Vinokourov in het centrum. Valverde zet zich recht. Tom Boonen komt eruit. Tom Boonen pakt nu over. Tom Boonen over Valverde. Tommeke, wat doe je nu? Tom Boonen gaat wereldkampioen worden. Tom Boonen gaat wereldkampioen worden. Tom Boonen op 1. Tom Boonen op 1. Tom Boonen is wereldkampioen.
Let me set this up a little bit. James Start got a call from Tom Boonen, who invited him to a car race in Holland. And when Tom Boonen calls and invites you to a car race, you instantly say yes. And so that's what James did. And 3 days later, he was on a train to Holland and got this interview.
Who is now in the middle of a new career racing cars. Yeah. Tom, to see you again. It was always great seeing you at the races. And now maybe we'll be seeing you at some other kinds of races. How did you get into car racing?
Racing is in my blood.
I guess.
I was always even before I started bike racing, I went a lot to my home racetrack in Zolder just to watch the races. And my granddad, he used to sell ice cream at the racetrack.
At the Zolder track,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Not only in Zolder, also at Spa. And that's one of my first memories I have, doing stuff together with my granddad. And I don't know, I just I love it. It's just the smell, the noise, the environment, you know, everything's going on, the tension that always hangs in the air. It's a completely different sport than cycling is. And when I started cycling, of course, I put it in the fridge a little bit, the idea of riding, but I started riding on track I think in 2005 or 6.
Racing cars again?
Yeah, but just track days and every once in a while, like 3-4 times a year maximum.
Off-season
whenever I had the opportunity. And as soon as I started to get more series involved, I always had the plan to do some racing after my career, after my cycling career. So 2 months after I retired and I put the bike up against the wall, I was already behind the wheel of my first race at Spa. And from there on, I just followed my own track a little bit and ended up here now. And this is the last serious race of the season for me, and I can get my first title on Sunday. So
which is
it's a Supercar Challenge title, it's an international competition. And we're racing as well on Sunday our National Endurance Championship, which is also actually international because there's people from all over Europe competing. But we lost a lot of points there in the 24 hours race that we do because the car got fire.
But just kind of caught on fire.
Yeah, the engine broke down and then everything just went up into flames. But it was only 10 seconds before they put the extinguisher on, so the car wasn't total. But so far so good, and I'm evolving. I'm I'm one of the fastest guys right now, and
you're in pole position. I saw.
Yeah.
You already got pole position
Yeah.
today. You were out training, and then you did 3 laps, and your last lap was the fastest of anybody.
Yeah, it's a thing. Probably one of the things I like about motorsports is that you don't get a lot of second chances. It's you have to perform when the time is there. You have to perform. In the race, it's something else because in most of the races you're behind the wheel anywhere between 30 to 1 hour and 40 minutes. Sometimes we go even in the 24-hour races. We do like 3-hour stints. But anyway, especially like a qualification, you need to perform at that point, and I love just getting into that sense of concentration. No, you have to fully be focused when you are able to go out and perform straight away, and that's probably one of the things that I like. And I had a few races this year where I was really just connected to the car. It was like I was one with it, like the seat was just glued to my back, and I wasn't thinking about anything else anymore. I was leading the race, and I managed to get a gap like 30 seconds on one of the best riders that Belgium has ever had.
Okay.
So it's something that fulfills me. It completes me. I think after cycling, when you had a pretty successful career in any sport, that lasted long. Because, I was on the bike 23 years. 16
it's
years.
A good little while.
16 years as a pro. And then if you have nothing, like you can do anything in the world, but there's nothing that really thrills you. I would just be unhappy, I think.
Yeah, obviously a lot of riders get into running, swimming, triathlons. Have you seen that?
But I also do that.
Yeah, well, you have to, obviously.
Yeah, I have to stay fit.
How do you get into motorsports? I mean, it seems to be so financially daunting and expensive. How do you even scratch the surface?
The thing was, I was always going a lot to the races, so a lot of the guys were already friends of mine.
Okay.
Before I stopped, they came to the bike races, I went to the car races, and it's like there's a crossover.
Okay.
A lot of the guys, the car guys, they love biking, they ride their bikes for training. A lot of the bike guys, like anybody knows, they love their cars, but
sure.
not all of them goes racing. But Nicky Terpstra, for example, he races in his spare time together with his dad, and they have a small BMW, and it's like also a nice hobby of them. But I was already pretty much involved before I stopped, so I had a few opportunities to get started, and I just got some chances because I was friends with a lot of guys, and this is the first year I'm really on my own, individual. I have my friend Sam de Jonge, who is a professional rider, and he also drives for Mahindra in Formula E, in the electric Formula cars. But he has a history in Formula 2, and so he had a lot of experience. And but this year is the first year I'm doing this individually. So I have Sam with me, and I'm having my sponsors that I got together over the last 2 years. And it's the first time I have like a 3-year period that everybody's involved for the next 3 years.
So you have to bring in your own sponsors.
Yeah. But it's the fairest thing. I mean, I've done a few other things in the past where the teams had sponsors, and then they contacted you, and in the end, there's always a little bit of a disappointment for anyone. So now I make my own choices. I'm with the team that I want to ride with, and they asked me. They bought a second car to get me in the team because they were only running one car before. So there was a lot of want together. So we went together, and the objective is also for the team to go to Le Mans in the future, and I hope to be part of that.
So that's your dream, is to drive the 24 hours.
That's my objective. It's a dream. Yeah. I dream of being happy. I dream of healthy kids, but sport-wise, that's my objective and my dream. Yeah.
Okay. How many times have you seen Steve McQueen's movie?
Only once.
Really?
Yeah. I'm eager to watch the new movie, the Ford versus Ferrari one. But it's not like I'm a car nuts guy that always watches the movies. But I know a lot of stuff about it, and sometimes we have a quiz every year, motorsport quiz, and I'm always pretty close to doing it. So I know my history, as well as I know my cycling history.
Yeah, you do.
Truth be told, we also feel a certain racing legacy whenever we ride a Pinarello, and especially with the F12. From Alexei Greywall's Olympic victory in 1984, to Pedro Delgado at the Tour in 1988, to Miguel Indurain's 1991-95 win streak, to Zabel, Ulrich, Wiggins, Froome, Thomas, and now Egan Bernal, You are in winning company on a Pinarello road frame, and the F12 is the culmination of all those designs and testing. Chris Cosentino is a celebrity chef, the co-owner of Coxcomb in San Francisco and Jackrabbit in Portland. He's also an author, a philanthropist, and the reason he's on our first podcast, he's a passionate cyclist. So passionate, in fact, that he and his riding buddy Terry decided to tackle the hallowed ground of Tom Boonen and ride the Paris-Roubaix sportive with thousands of other amateur cyclists. We talked to Chris about that day.
Well, I think, for starters, when I did this, how it all started was ultimately a conversation on my 44th birthday where Terry and I had ridden from San Francisco up to Lagunitas, and we proceeded to drink pretty heavily after we got there because my wife had set up a tour for us for my birthday. And when we got up there, ironically, they had just released this new beer, and it was called Where's Waldo? And they created this high octane beer, right?
Okay.
And Terry and I set the record that day. We drank 7 pints of 14% beer after riding from SF up to Petaluma to the brewery, right? Okay. So up there through the conversation, I'm like, I'm 45 next year, the next year, let's go ride Paris-Roubaix because it's going to be really close to my birthday. And Paris-Roubaix falls on my birthday, fell on my birthday last year. And so that kind of becomes like a party for me. It's like, I get to watch this race. To me, it's like, it's the epitome of races. I think it's beautiful. It's grueling. It's, whether it's mud or dust, it's still going to hurt. And the history behind it's just incredible. And I just would always get up super early in the morning on my birthday and watch it, when it was on or whenever, any other time. And I, in that drunken state, we're like, we're going next year. And and in a day later, Terry sent me, well, here's the sportive stuff. So we signed up. Great. And we ended up turning it into a 3-week vacation. Of course, I was not by any means fit enough to be riding that. I'll be, crystal clear. We had gone to London for a week prior, and I'd eaten at all my friends' restaurants. And then we go to France, and that's where we meet Terry. And then we eat in France for a few days. And then we head to Belgium. So we get there, we ride the Koppenberg one day. And then to do it, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it's going to be. I mean, because you've been there, but like, you have to get up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
To get to the location, to get on a bus with 3,000 other morons who think that this is a great idea. And you're sitting on a bus, it's pitch black. Your bike's being handed off to a guy that's literally putting it in a truck, like an 18-wheeler with layers of plywood dividing the bikes because they lay the plywood on the seats so they can put the next layer of bikes on top. And you literally get your fucking race number from the back of a station wagon. So you're wondering to yourself as you're handing off your bike with all these other people out there, is that truck actually going to make it? Or was this just the biggest scam in the world and they're driving away with thousands upon thousands of dollars of bikes?
Yeah.
So you get on this bus with all these folks and you drive to this location where you can't even get the bus up to where you're supposed to get off. You get off on this public street, and then there's another section where you have to find out which bus number matches with the 18-wheeler number that has your bike in it, hoping that you were the last bike in, not the first.
Yeah, exactly.
To get to the start. And you get there, and they don't tell you that there's a place to drop off clothes. Like that you can leave a bag of like extra gear. They don't tell you any of this stuff. It's like you're figuring out as you go. And I'm like, I'm trying to find the Rafa crew because they said they would hold our stuff, but I can't find them. So it ends up being like this total mess. But I'm like super nervous, like freaked out that I'm actually going to ride Paris-Roubaix, and it's super foggy and it's cold.
Yeah.
And there's no like gun going off. It's just like, go ahead, have fun. there's no like, set up at the line. It's just like, all right, you're ready. You got your number on. You got your go.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no organization. And it was so crazy to be, you're in like this, I don't know, it was like the French version of the YMCA where they had, a little coffee and there was this little area to change. And I mean, ironically, I changed on the bus and managed to put my bike shorts on inside out. So I got off the bus because it's pitch black and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
Oh,
and then it just goes and you're looking around and you're like, oh, wow, there's a Greg LeMond bike from like whatever era. And then there's a guy over here on a fixed gear that looks like it's from, I don't know, the 1920s.
Yeah.
And then you've got the dude next to you who's riding like the $35,000 bike that's custom with all the gear, yet he's 4 times my size. Right. So you have it all. And that's what was so cool about it to me, is because you get a coffee, they had that there for us, and then you just ride at your own pace, do whatever you want. But man, there are people out there who want to hammer, and there are people out there who want to enjoy it. But there's kind of like the mix, right? Like if you don't hammer, the cobbles hurt more. But then when you are hammering, it hurts in a different way. So it's kind of a game.
Did somebody tell you to put your hands on top of like when you hit the cobbles? That was my biggest thing. Like I didn't know where my hands should be. And if they're not, on top on the hoods, and that's the right position at speed. And I remember the first time just my hands were just like, I could barely hold on to the bars anymore after a little while.
Nobody told me anything.
Okay.
I mean, it was like I was going in blind. It was just my buddy Terry, who I've ridden with for years. He was way more fit than I was, way more prepared. I'm a chef. I'm a chef. I'm not, I don't have all this time to be out there training, and I eat, it's like I taste for a living. So I showed up there probably a little too heavy, probably a little underridden. And it ended up, I mean, because we rode the Koppenberg the day before and we got caught out in the winds on the way back. By the way, the Belgian winds are real. Yeah. It was like starting off super cold and you're out there and I'm like, wow, okay, this is fun. We're having a good time. And then you hit that first cobble section and it was like a bomb had gone off. And I don't know how else to explain it to people. Like there was one guy whose rear wheel folded around his frame, yet he was still sitting on the bike. There was another guy who had half a handlebar in one hand, and then he was holding onto the bar that was still attached to his bike in the other hand. So, that was kind of a weird, like, you can't even picture it unless you're seeing, like, you can't even make this shit up. It was so weird. Like,
I remember, just being scared, like literally scared to death every section. Initially, I didn't know what was going to happen with the bike. I didn't know if I was going to crash. I didn't know how fast I should go. And then, so it's scary. It's legitimately scary if you've never done it. It's hard to describe the first few rides on the Pinarello F12. The bike did everything right, but we didn't notice anything otherworldly until we looked at our times on regular Strava segments. They were all faster. So we kept riding and continued to push the handling and speed characteristics of the F12, and in doing so, began to fall in love with this bike. It isn't very often where we feel humbled by a bike design or a build. On the F12, we did. The bike is built for intensity and race courses, and although humbled, we were also pushed to go a little faster, a little farther, and brake a little later into corners, knowing that the Pinarello F12 would not only handle the extra input, but would also own it. Every episode of Aérogramme, we will try to go a bit deeper and ask celebrities and riders questions from the Proust questionnaire. And our guest for episode 1 is the gregarious Jens Voigt.
Jens, you're one of the cycling's biggest personality. I thought it would be really good to catch up with you and give you the Proust questionnaire, which is always fun and takes us away from just simply bikes and into all aspects of life. The first question: what is your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness is being healthy, not having to work anymore, and see your children prosper.
What is the trait you most deplore or detest in yourself?
My impatience.
Your impatience?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have more patience.
Okay. And what's the trait that you most deplore in other people?
False friendship, false pity, false feelings, where, when people pretend to be something they are not.
Okay. And which living person do you most admire?
Oof.
These are hard.
Yeah, they are. Which living person I most admire? Well, I would say my entire family.
Mm-hmm. And what is your greatest extravagance?
My greatest extravagance is that I'm a member of a society, a hunt with birds of prey.
That you go bird hunting? Or you?
No.
No, you.
We have falcons and goosehawks and eagles. They sit on a leather glove on our left arm. That they hunt. Falconry, I think it is.
Okay, so you'll go out walking in the woods or in nature and with your falcons.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, yes.
I did not know this about you, Jens.
Well, I do not have a bird yet because I travel too much, but I be a member of that, and I go with them, yes.
Huh, that sounds kind of fascinating. Although, I bet you have to get up pretty early.
Yes, indeed, yes. And you'll be out there for a while.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
To have millions of followers on social media.
How many do you have?
250,000 on Twitter.
So you don't feel that you're inferior in some way with that? That you only have 250,000?
I mean, come on. How can, if you look at the numbers, it is like the whole country of France follows a soccer player or follows Kim Kardashian. I think that's just a little overrated.
Okay. On what occasion do you lie?
Not often, but if it's for good purpose.
What is the quality you most like in a man?
Being able to take a proper and rational and logic decision, being able to stick with it, and being able to face the consequences and stick with his opinion.
Okay. What quality do you most like in a woman?
I like the quality in a woman that even though they do a logic decision, they still add that human touch. They still want to make everybody happy. They still try, that nobody loses out, which is a very hard task to do.
Yes, it is.
Whatever they take, they still look at the human side of it as well.
Okay, very good. Which words or phrases do you most overuse? Well, I was going to say the other one I like that you have is it's better than a kick in the face.
Yes, it's better than a kick in the teeth. Or I sometimes also use I'm not just a pretty face.
Well, that's true. I have heard that come from your mouth before. When and where were you happiest?
Happiest every time one of my children was born and it all went well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the 2005 Paris-Roubaix, when I basically single-handed saved the race for Bobby. Bobby's such a good old friend of mine.
Mm-hmm. Bobby Julik, yeah.
Bobby Julik. And going to the last stage, we lost the entire team. It was just me left, and I managed to save it. And finishing, standing next to him on a podium, you see his family, they are in tears of joy and happiness, and to see Daddy winning, I think that is the moment in my entire career where I was the most happy and proud of myself.
Yeah, and you got the blue points jersey that year, right?
Yes, actually, I think I did, yes.
Yeah, I think I have a picture of you somewhere just punching it on the Col d'Ez with Bobby on your wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really good day.
Yeah. Which talent would you most like to have?
Now, we're not talking superpowers, don't we?
Well, it could be whatever you want, Jens. This can be about bikes, it can be about life, it can be about reading a book, it can be anything you want.
I would love to have the talent of teleportation, because I could be now here in the U.S., and in a blink of an eye, I could be back home, kissing my family goodnight, kissing the kids goodnight, and I'd be back home at my job in the U.S.
And no jet lag to deal with.
Yes.
That's pretty good. I like that. That's better than first class upgrade.
Yeah. Yo, that's for sure.
I believe that what we become depends on what our fathers teach us at odd moments, when they aren't trying to teach us. We are formed by little scraps of wisdom. Umberto Eco. We were rolling up Interstate 95 from New Hampshire to Vermont at around 11 p.m. when my almost 16-year-old son figured out how to put Bon Iver's Air Studios Live performance through the sound system in our rental car. Up till then, we'd only been listening to 24 Golden. Maybe I had influenced him in some way toward different music and creativity. Feeling confident, I decided to reach out of my comfort zone with him. Do you want to learn how to play an instrument, like guitar or something? I was imagining he and I on Saturdays at the music shop down the street, spending time together making music. Not really. I'd actually like to learn how to box and to fight. There's a kid at my school I'd really like to hit. I knew who he was talking about, and I tended to agree with him but didn't mention it. I just think it would be good to know how to fight well. It would be a good thing to learn. I agreed, but added, I get it, but what about the guitar? Nah, if I have any extra time, I want to learn how to fight. I sighed and kept driving in silence. The guitar shop dream dissipated and replaced with visions of boxing gloves, suspensions, assault charges, jump ropes, and black eyes. We did have our bikes in the back of the car, though, so no matter what we talked about, I knew that in the next 48 hours we would do our first gravel ride together in Vermont for his 16th birthday. So I had thick emotional armor on and visions of a life riding bikes with my son. We built up our gravel bikes, fueled by copious amounts of Dunkin' Donuts goods, and headed over to Ian and Gretchen Boswell's farm to do a little shakedown spin that ended up being a 2.5-hour ride with 3,000 feet of climbing. I was blown away by how well Christian rode and how fluid and comfortable he was on a bike. Because of my job, I never pushed him to ride, though I think I was secretly hoping by not putting pressure on him, he'd discover cycling on his own and then plan and invite me on yearly trips to exotic European locales. The next day was the Peachum Fondo, and we decided to make it to the famous pie stop at mile 25 and then call it a day. 100 kilometers and 6,000 feet of climbing in 2 days seems sufficient for a kid who doesn't really ride bikes, nor has ever used clipless pedals. I cracked about 2 hours in. So many hills. I was on a bunch of cold medicine, and while it's all a bit blurry, I know that Christian and I befriended 2 cyclists from Canada, and because he was ahead of me all day, I could see him in the distance, chatting with Matt and Tom, and he would kindly wait at the top of the long climbs, pretending to take a drink from his water bottle, so it didn't look like he was waiting for me. I distinctly remember him yelling at me on a long gravel descent, "Dad, lay off the brakes, get more speed." I did, but he still passed me. We made it to the pie stop, and Matt and Tom ended the day there as well. "Those guys were great," Christian said to me on the ride home. "I love that they go on trips together and ride bikes all over the world. They seem so happy." They were happy. And so was I. We hope you've enjoyed episode 1 of Aérogramme, and if so, please check out our award-winning print and digital magazine at pelotonmagazine.com. And by the way, Tom Boonen went on to become the 2019 Supercar Challenge champion, and 2 weeks later clinched the Ultimate Cup Series in France.